Hello from Southern Ontario, Canada, September 3rd. So as the trial of Tamara Litch and Chris Barber begins on Tuesday here in Canada, a very, very important, I think probably Canada's arguably, or perhaps inarguably, most important trial, perhaps ever, as far as freedom and rights go. Anyways, I want to talk about Pat King briefly. Put that up there to maybe block the wind noise a little. In part because I was just up the street talking to a couple who are retired now and live the van life. I said, what are you doing here? You know, on this side street in Brantford. So we have an apartment here. We have to return 2 months out of the year to Canada. Otherwise they roam around and have for, I believe they said 3 years. And they didn't know anything about Ottawa really at all and knew nothing about the World Economic Forum. Although the husband did say at one point he feels sorry for his grandchildren, things are a mess. But other than that, so they've been managing to live their life totally oblivious to what's going on in the world. I'm envious. I asked if they needed a chauffeur. They said no. But anyways, Pat King. Because he keeps getting lumped in with Tamara and Chris as a organizer and leader of the Freedom Convoy, the truckers protest, whatever you prefer to call it, in Ottawa. He was a road captain for one province. He never claimed to be a leader of the organization. The leaders, well, it's not an organization, it was a grassroots movement. Forgive me, my terminology mistake there. He said, I'm not one of the organizers. And the organizers all said, no, Pat King's Pat King. He's Pat King. Pat King had a channel no different than mine. I bumbled across him before the protest in Ottawa. He's just what the Trudeau regime would call someone like me, a media influencer. Trying to influence anybody. Trying to say, hey, take a look around. Bad shit's happening all over the place, not just in Canada. Well, that's what Pat King was doing too. Now, Pat got a little full of himself. I've said this before, and I don't mind saying it again. And don't take me wrong, I have a deep respect for Pat King. He stuck his neck out the same as everybody else did, and now there's a noose wrapped around it. He's brash, he's gruff, he's outspoken. And on a few occasions, he kind of lacked decorum in the way he expressed himself. Well, his ego got in the way. But his followers on his channel and in social media, I mean, he went from like 20,000 to 200,000 people. A lot of the truckers and a lot of the common men and women in Canada saw Pat King as one of their own. You know, he's got a whiskey and cigarette gravelly voice. Well, I don't know if he drinks whiskey, but whatever. You know what I mean. He resonated with a lot of people. But all along he said, I'm not part of the organization. And they said, hey, Pat King's just Pat King. You know, we're not peas in a pod here. Pat King's trial starts November 27th. Note even the courts separate him from Tamara, Chris, and others. If you go to Wikipedia, it's a leftist blog, whatever. They paint Chris, or not Chris, I'm sorry, Pat to just be the worst of the worst. He's not. He's gruff, he's unpolished, he's outspoken, and he got a little bit full of himself. It's understandable, I think. He was on the streets in Ottawa and people were going, you're the man, Pat. Well, hey, we all fall victim to our own egos. I have the same sympathy for Pat King as I do Tamara Litch and Chris Barber. Although they are very much different breeds of animal, so to speak. Pat, again, coarse, rough, and outspoken. To compare him to Chris, say, who's quite polished. For a common man. Again, no offense meant to anyone or to offend anyone in my opinion of these people. They're sacrificial lambs to a one. I have nothing but the deepest sympathy and respect for them. They've all held, well, I can't say that word. They haven't, I can't say they've stuck to their, I can't say that. Censorship in Canada. They've stuck to their morals and their beliefs. And they all need our support. And I think it's crucial what happens in these trials. So anyways, I just wanted to lay that background if you're new to the story, because, well, I'll be commenting on it. You just watch how the mainstream media, the propaganda department of the regime of Trudeau, is going to go back at vilifying these individuals again as this trial begins. Be curious to see how they deal with it, and I'll sure be chirping about it. Hit the like button for me, would you? Thanks. Take care.